Pasok Divrei Torah.
Right. So
Amen.
we know that last week we observed Yom HaShoah.
Yeah.
And we even had an interesting conversation about what's a greeting for Yom HaShoah. Like you don't say Happy Yom HaShoah or something like that. So that was fun. And we know that Yom HaZikaron is Tuesday. Yom HaZikaron is the annual Memorial Day for soldiers lost in combat. And it also has been expanded because of the nature of the real world to include soldiers lost through friendly fire,
Yeah.
and soldiers lost through suicide. Each of those changes required anguished families going to court, and they were able to get those expansions. So that's Tuesday. Wednesday, April 26th, is Yom HaAtzmaut, when enemy satellites will not be able to pick up any images of Israel because it will be clouded with barbecue smoke. And it's going to be, part of it is funny, but part of it isn't. You go into Gan Sacher, which is the big park in Jerusalem, and on Yom HaAtzmaut, you can kind of see the park. Everyone is there with their grills, grilling my vegetables, only vegetables. And so that's Yom HaAtzmaut. In Israel, right at this moment, there is an effort to clarify what will happen with the anti-government protests tonight, which is actually right now. Out of respect for Yom HaZikaron and Yom HaAtzmaut, will they protest or will they reshape the protest? It'll be interesting to see how it comes out. In addition, there is debate as to whether to allow Arabs to participate in Yom HaAtzmaut official celebrations, to admit them into the big celebrations. Believe me, this is not my debate. This is just an ugly debate that some people think really important. So in any event, April 26th, everything now has become political. Bibi has just appointed a new consul general for Israel, New York, a radical right-wing activist to work with the New York Jewish community. Needless to say, there's been a serious amount of pushback. Is anybody surprised? But that's what's going on now. So May 3rd is our next class dealing with current events. And by May 3rd, we may have a little bit better picture as to what is evolving in Israel. In the meanwhile, the Jewish Federations of North America are having their so-called General Assembly. It's a little different this year in Israel. And the major agenda of JFNA, the Jewish Federation's North America, is going to be to protest the government. This has never happened ever in the history of the Jewish Federation movement. Then I was supposed to be in Israel this week for a special meeting of the World Zionist Congress. I was supposed to be a delegate. It wasn't even possible for me to contemplate such a trip this year. And I have missed out on all the fun. The minister in charge of handling the court restructuring came to the World Zionist Congress to speak, invited. He was mobbed by angry Zionists, had to run into a room and close the door and lock it. And he was extracted from the building by the Israeli police. If anyone thinks that this is just mild concern in Israel, it isn't. It just isn't. Anyway, May 3rd, we should start seeing some indication as to where this will end up. All right. Cindy, how are you feeling today, Cindy?
Good. Probably ate something bad.
Aw.
I had mussels the night before.
Great, great, great.
Okay, so Sisterhood is celebrating Israel's 75th birthday this Tuesday at Nua. I know several of you are joining us, and it should be a lovely feast of Israeli foods. Thursday night, we're doing a little taste of Prague. It'll be a Zoom at 7 p.m. You could sign up. Probably it'll be in the weekly Monday and Wednesday just to get the Zoom link. It'll be about an hour just to kind of show a little bit of the Jewish history and the beauty of Prague. And then Friday night at 6 p.m., we're having a Shabbat dinner at Froman's.
Yes.
That's our week.
Cool. I'm going to miss you all.
That's a very fattening week. That's very nice.
We're not eating on Thursday.
Oh.
Okay.
So really quick, so Susie's not going to be here. Who do I contact if I want to go to Froman's?
Barbara Heckman.
Barbara Heckman, but just let me know. If you put it in the chat, let me know, and then I'll let her know. It's 6 p.m. at Froman's. Everyone is welcome.
Thank you.
Are you planning on coming, Kevin? I'll write you down.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
But I have to remember. It's one of those things. My memory's bad.
Okay. So that's great. And Cindy, we've known each other a long time, very close friends. I am not going to ask you to bring home a doggy bag to any rabbi you happen to know.
Wait a minute. I had my meeting with the event planner, and when we went over the menu, I said, will there be a lot of take-home containers? And she said yes.
Wow, great.
So it will be buffet style, but I assume with 5 appetizers, 5 main dishes, and 3 desserts, there should be some leftovers.
Okay.
I can't go to that. I'm getting married.
I'm not begging. My last name, Davids, and you know, whatever.
Since you're sending your wife, I'm sure she'll take care of you.
I'm not so sure.
It depends if he's behaving.
Jim Ruxin. Is Jim here? I didn't see Jim. Okay, Jim is not here. We'll get back to Jim. Okay. Welcome to the Rabbi's Nightmare. First of all, checking in, is there anything that you'd like to share with our community? Anything going on in your lives that is noteworthy?
I'm moving.
Is that
I'm moving to Florida. Really? Oh,
When do you go?
yeah, my fiance lives in Florida.
Okay, make sure. that
Okay,
you
you're gonna
remember-
see, just have a great, you know something, this is the last conversation we're gonna have together. Because the 4th of May, I'm on a plane.
Wish it all the best.
And I love all you dearly. I'll be on Zoom with you. I'll jump on Zoom when you'll see me. And you go, oh my gosh, it's really true. I'll see you later.
Okay, well, Nasiya Tova, have a pleasant, good weekend.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else going on of any sort? That's good. We will move forward. That's excellent. So good to see you. I went, you know that I keep a full electronic record of all of the classes I teach for Chevra Torah so that, I can avoid redundancy. Wait a second, I did that last year. I did that 2 years ago. And I went back to look at the record. And for 2 years in a row, I was connecting this set of Torah portions with COVID. That's what the conversation was. The center of Tazria and Mitzorah, the twin Sedras for this week, is illness, skin disease, nocturnal emissions, menstruation, all those happy topics that rabbis just, oh, what a wonderful week to preach. So for 2 years, we were locked into COVID. This is my last mention of COVID today.
Mazel tov.
Okay. Mazel tov for what? Oh, because we're not going to talk about COVID. Oops. Okay. Now, we have in these sedras descriptions of disease. And I want to make clear, because there's been a lot of misunderstanding, that it is highly unlikely that the skin disease talked about is leprosy. It is common understanding, ordinary wisdom, that Tazria Mitzorah deals with handling leprosy within the community. And as best as modern scholarship can offer today, it's not. You'll notice in a whole variety, if you read the things, especially if you have a background in epidemiology, if you read the descriptions, how the disease can be healed in 2 weeks or in 3 weeks or whatever, you realize that's not the course of treatment for leprosy. So it's not. What it is a variety of unknown, unknowable to us skin diseases that sometimes appear with, I can do this without moving my hand, but it's hard, white splotches on your body, and they break out. And when that happens, you are isolated, there are sacrifices, there is ritual, and so forth. I was speaking with my friendly health caregiver, Gilroy from Belize, about leprosy. And he just kind of like shuddered, because in Belize, like in so many other countries, someone pops up with those white splotches, and they are a source of religious fear. They are isolated. He said that when kids are in school and one of the kid has eruptions of some sort on the skin, that kid is isolated, mocked, condemned, and in very bad shape. He said that the odds of someone like that marrying later on in life, very restricted. Skin diseases are viewed with fear and hostility, at least in certain states, in certain countries. But it is not leprosy, though leprosy was and is a feature of life in the Middle East. One of Jerusalem's most interesting art centers is a former leprosy museum, leprosy hospital. It's just there. And of course, we know that people don't refer to it as leprosy today. They refer to it as Hansen's disease. That's the ordinary language. Now, to get into the deal. In the ancient Middle East, disease was viewed as a punishment from God, just the way infertility was viewed as a punishment from God. I say this only to say that from today's perspective, that's blatant nonsense. But it wasn't nonsense to the people who wrote the Torah. It wasn't nonsense to the people in the ancient Middle East. And I do not hesitate to point out, it is not nonsense in the eyes of ultra-Orthodox Judaism today, where the belief that suffering is related to your moral state. The first thing you're supposed to do in that world when illness strikes is to ask yourself, what did I do wrong? And believe me, I do not associate with this perspective, but it is there. I told you in previous years, one of the most, and I'm doing it again, and now what my notes say I did it again. The time I went to hear one of the greatest experts in Jewish medical ethics with a PhD in advanced science give a lecture at a high school, an Orthodox high school. I wanted to hear him because he is a world expert. Orthodox rabbi, PhD, scientist, book author, wildly accepted as the expert of all experts. And he started talking about disease and the connection between disease and the will of God. I, at that point, a new entrant into the world of cancer, raised my hand politely. I was, after all, a guest. He could tell I was not a high school student. Raised my hand and said, "Doctor, does that mean if someone has cancer, that cancer is a reflection of the will of God?" His answer, one word and straight, yes.
That's not true.
Yes.
I don't believe that.
So I felt very good about that. What I felt good about was that I didn't strangle him. You know, you have to use a little bit of, and that was fine. But he said it and then went on to explain it. That position within the rabbinic world caused the rabbis to look at the word for leprosy, which is Metzora, which is the title of the second Sedra, Tazria and Metzora. And the rabbis looked at the word Metzora and said, that word is actually a hint at what causes leprosy. Motzi Shem Ra. Metzora. They took it apart and they made words. Metzora, Motzi, Shem Ra, gossip. The primary cause for people getting leprosy, according to the medieval rabbinic scholars and continuing today, is gossip. And gossip is punished by God through skin disease. I'm going to stop here. There's much more. Stop here in case there was a question. Steve, I see your hand. Eric, I'd also seen your hand pop up.
Thinking something is the will of God, I think, is different than saying it's a punishment. I mean, look what happened to Job. He didn't do anything wrong, yet it was the will of God that all of these horrible things happened. So I think there are actually two different questions here. One is whether there's a divine involvement, and the other is what would cause it to come into play.
Okay, there are a few answers to that. Number one, and this is not a deflection, Job wasn't Jewish. And that's a very interesting facet of the study of Job. Number two, Job is an exception because there the will of God is a test. And Satan incited God and God afflicted Job. The normal course, if you view an affliction as expressing the will of God, and you believe that God is a God celebrated with goodness, then overwhelmingly, Steve, will of God and punishment go together. I'm going to grant you that in the story of Job, the way it's factored, it reads differently. Yes, indeed. Okay, I see Eric and I see Arthur. Eric, Arthur.
I had cancer 3 years ago that affected my hearing and my side of my face. Is that the will of God that I got cancer after I did a worthy deed? Thank you.
Quick answer, and I don't specialize in quick answers. No, it is not the will of God. And rarely do I stand up with such clean, easy answers. No, I do not believe that in the slightest. Arthur.
In case of something happens and when we want to relate it to God, there are three sects, not only two. We may not say that God did that or God did not do that. We may say something happens, God did not do anything against it. This is when something bad happens to good people, as Kushner, the New York rabbi, puts it. This is the time when God does not react. So you cannot say that it was God's action or reverse.
What you are really trying to say, Arthur, that your broken right arm was not caused by God. Is that what you're saying?
It is not correct the way that you said. God did not prevent me from breaking my hand.
Oh, your hand. Okay. The book, When Bad Things Happen to Good People,
Rabbi Kushner from New York,
brings up a theology which most traditional Jews would find horrible. I am not saying I disagree with Kushner, but understand that Kushner's position was, he's passed away, was radical. He removed God from active intervention in human lives. And the answer was very helpful to Kushner as he was dealing with the terrible disease that afflicted his son. The book sold so many thousands of books more than all of my books will ever sell. People bought it. People read it. But very few people have gone into the theology behind the book, which was astonishingly radical, with which I happen to mostly agree. We could talk more about that. Okay, Donna Stacy Howard.
Oh, Donna Nadell or me? Okay, I was gonna say I was born early, weighed 2 pounds and 3/4 ounces. Mommy called it itty bit and tiny bit. I wasn't supposed to live, but she sang to me. Now I sing, and I have a gift for the piano. And everybody, when I say I'm bipolar, oh, she's mentally ill. But wait, then I play the piano and go, she's brilliant.
Okay.
It's just, I'm just saying, Rabbi, that people are so, the perceptions and perspectives, and when that's not a disease. Disease means dis-ease. You're not at ease in something, and it affects your body and makes you sick.
Thank you very much. Great, Stacy.
Rabbi, my reaction to the Orthodox rabbi who you questioned, it just seems so primitive and anti-science. And it's like, we're looking for explanations for things that we don't have the capacity to know those explanations. So to me, it sounds like you're just almost sort of making it up because people need to understand things that they can't understand. Anyway, that's my reaction to that.
The pre-science that's involved in our Sedras is a reminder why we Reformed Jews approach Torah with an open mind and a willingness to challenge, all the while accepting the sanctity of Torah. The sanctity of Torah, in my eyes, and in this, that's a terrible thing to say because I have very little vision left. But in my eyes, the sanctity of Torah does not require accuracy in things that were pre-science that these people in the best of times could not possibly have understood. On the other hand, it does deal with quarantine. There are some basic things that are there that are good, or that is to say valid, not good, valid. But Stacy, we are always trying to explain why things are the way they are. And I can't fault the folks 3,000 years ago because we're doing it as well.
Right.
Do you know, just in case you're interested, that the best way to make certain that your fields are fertile is to go out, if you're male, into the fields with a sacred prostitute, have intercourse there, thus guaranteeing fertility in the fields. And you know what? It very often worked.
Oh my gosh,
Okay?
Rabbi.
It worked because the fields were rich and the land and the water, whatever. And it worked because I saw it with my eyes. We are always looking for explanations. And that's not a bad thing. We just have to see them in their context. Howard.
I would want to come back to what it says in the Bible, that God says I create peace and I make evil.
Isaiah.
Isaiah says that. Now, Isaiah, just because Isaiah says it, like he said, it doesn't mean it's true. But I never saw anything in the scripture that says Isaiah was wrong. And I mean, you just think about it and look at the world. It's obviously, if God exists, it's obviously true.
I like Isaiah 54. No weapon.
Okay, the
Works for me.
quote out of Isaiah that has God saying, I create evil, is one of the most theologically challenging statements in the whole Bible.
Sure, it ought to be.
He said it. It's there. Okay.
Mhm.
What it means and how it's understood, Howard, is complicated.
But if you just look at the world, it makes so much sense.
It does, Howard. I'm not going to go into it fully here. With any luck, I'll write a book about it. But
If you want a religion where God loves you, then become a Christian.
the one of the problems with the statement is being able to define what is evil. And there are many people, many, who believe that nuggets of good can be mined out of the worst of terrible things.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
The
I never
Hebrew,
saw it.
yeah, my
It's all
response,
for the best. I mean, Candide saw it. Voltaire, you know, the best of all possible, the best world of all possible worlds.
yes, and then I'm going to go out and tend my garden. The question is complicated. The question you raise is excellent. It is a challenge.
I mean, if you want to have another approach, you can read Harold Kushner or Norman Vincent Peale or Billy Graham or, you know.
Billy Graham was an anti-Semite.
Oh
Well,
my
I
God.
hold grudges.
yeah, I won't argue about that.
Okay,
That's-
let's just move forward.
He
So-
was.
I'm sorry?
I agree with you, Rabbi. He was. That's why I moved away from North Carolina.
Okay, so
So really.
the doctors of the day were the priests. And the priests handled all of the procedures to bring about reconciliation with God and healing. So there are two mysteries. I have a disease. Mystery one, what did I do wrong? Mystery two, what can I do to reconcile myself with God and thus ease my illness? This is how our Sedras understand all the diseases mentioned there. Next point,
May I ask you one quick question, please?
No,
please
Come
hold.
on, you gotta- it's the last time I'm gonna see everybody. I
Please.
gotta ask.
Please hold.
Okay. You said no.
Visible signs of illness make people uncomfortable. Visible signs of disability make people uncomfortable. When you see people who are limited intellectually, physically, illness, wheelchair, walker, cane, in bed, unable to, makes people uncomfortable. Why? Why? I can tell you, I go on my 3-mile walk every morning on the Venice beach side toward the Venice Pier. And I see the most incredibly diverse population of humanity. And I'm not going to say anything negative about the diversity, but some of it is quite negative. I watch how a caregiver or family member wheels a disabled person, and I see how people turn away. I make it now, believe me, I'd never aspired to sainthood. That may surprise some of you. I never aspired to sainthood. But since I started walking the beach, I have started extending personal upfront greetings to people in wheelchairs or to people who are being helped by family members because they physically cannot walk or they have other kinds of obvious trouble. The reaction to recognizing the humanity of a disabled, ill, broken, whatever, signs of illness or disability, the reaction from the caregivers is astonishing. Mostly the people they care for upset other people and they turn away. Why? I'm going to say that's a fairly natural reaction. Why?
Hello.
Why? Anyone want to offer a hand and an answer? Eric.
I have autism level 1, and when I open my mouth and move a certain way, I am a moving target. So people used to bully me many years ago at work and at school and everything. So because I was different, so I have a firsthand knowledge of what's happening in the level 1 autism community, like also known as Asperger's. And I'm quite sensitive to other things because we have hidden problems like anxiety and depression. So I do the best I can to survive and all that stuff. Thank you very much for your time.
I have a situation.
Arthur?
In order to understand Kushner or our case, we have to realize whether religion can be against science. If we respond to this question, all of the problem would be solved.
I can only say this: religion and science for thousands of years were struggling to find answers to the same problems and then jealously guarded the truths they think they found. And scientific attack on religion, religious attacks on science, both have not led to anything good. Because within the world of religion, translate that to psychology, translate that to understanding human behavior, there is truth there. And science has truth. The sad thing is that they have been at loggerheads forever. And that's blind. And that is blind. When I first was diagnosed, I began reading all about mind-body connection. I am a convert to that notion. I am a convert that what happens to our body, what happens to our mind and our emotions can have direct impact on our physical well-being. But no more lectures there. I
agree, Rabbi.
I want to move on quickly. Rebecca, Stacy, and I want to move on quickly.
I worked 26 years in the nursing home industry as a physical therapist assistant, and people turn away from looking at people with disease or in wheelchairs or walking with limps, whatever, because we have an image in our mind of what is normal, even though using a walker, being in a wheelchair is perfectly normal. It's normal for that person.
And I'm going to say to you, Rebecca, that part of the problem is the Torah problem. If they're suffering, there's a reason. And I want to step away from that reason. Stacy.
Yeah, my response to that is I think that I think the reason people turn away, or what you were saying when you're taking your walks and seeing disabled people, I think it's because ultimately people fear that that's what's going to happen to them, and it's very difficult to look in the mirror and think that you could also be in that same position. So I think it's fear driven.
I'm going to let that stand with a vigorous yes. The Hebrew word for being well is shlemut.
Shlemut.
Shin lamed mem vav taf. Shlemut. You hear the root, right? You hear shalom in that root. You hear shalem, which means W-H-O-L-E, whole. Shlemut can also mean perfection. The opposite of shlemut is illness. The very Hebrew word puts the disabled, ill person in a bad light. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? If this is shlemut and you don't have it, then you are not perfect, not whole, not complete. You are damaged.
I don't believe that. I'm not.
Please hold. Okay, now, I am going to ask that we turn in our book to make Effie happy to page 747. It's not in the women's commentary. 747. And yes, I do offer a medical ethics degree after 3 more lectures. So you can, kind of pick that up.
We love you, Rabbi.
747, which is also an airplane, is the Haftarah attached to Tazria. Okay? It's attached to one of our 2 Sedras. I don't know if you know the story. It begins with an astonishing thing. There is a prophet, Elisha, who was his teacher. Right, Elijah. Oh, sorry, Donna. I didn't grab you. I didn't see you in time. I didn't see your little box. Elijah. Elijah is dead. Elisha takes over. Okay? Elisha takes over. The fact that Elie Wiesel's son is named Elisha opens up all kinds of interesting thoughts. But, so here he is, chapter 4, verse 42. And a man came in bringing bread from the first bread harvest. Elisha says, give the people to eat. The servant says, I can't put a small amount in front of a large amount of people. Give it to the people to eat, and they will have enough and left over. I don't do Old Testament, New Testament, Hebrew Bible, Christian Bible comparisons. But the multiplying of fishes and loaves is the repetition of a belief long ago held that through prophets, God can multiply food, and it's here. I laughed at this. Yeah, right. With all the starvation in the world, forget that. Okay, now, the commander, like a general of the Armenian army, friends of the Jewish people at this point, Arameans, not Armenia, Arameans. He developed a skin disease. The Hebrew word for skin disease, Metzora. It's the same word. He gets the Metzora disease. And he is sent to somebody for healing. He's sent to Elisha because Jewish prophets were engaged in the healing business. The king of Israel hears that this Aramean general wants healing from a Hebrew, and the king starts tearing his clothes. I'm not going to give what probably he said, what words, because they're not nice, but doggone it, we are in trouble. My guy doesn't fix him. I've got a war. Where did this come from? Fine. That's what happens. Now, Elisha, verse 10, sends the general Naaman a message. Go bathe 7 times in the Jordan. Your flesh will be purified and back to normal. Again, I say, do you hear why this is not leprosy? Right? Can't be. Can't be. Okay. And then the general got angry. I got water back home. I don't need to come to this Jewish, very small river and bathe in it for healing. Naaman went up to him. Elisha went up to him. Do it. And he was healed. What do we learn from medicine in this story? There's more, but what do we learn? If the medication is too simple and not magical enough, we don't like it. It doesn't appeal. You know, take 2 and call me in the morning is very off-putting. You know, poor Naaman, he wanted a big show and he got dip in our water. Fine. Then something interesting happens. He says to Elisha, accept a present from me. They didn't have Medicare. Accept a present. Let me pay you for your medical treatment. Elisha, I'm not going to say anything about doctors. Elisha refuses. I won't accept. Look at verse 17. Then Naaman, he's the general, said, if not, please let me have 2 mule loads of earth on which to build an altar when I get back home. I will never again offer sacrifice to anyone but your God. What's happening? What are we learning about religion in the biblical period? What do we learn? Give me 2 mule loads of earth. Why? Why? Come on. Donna.
because that's holy earth. So apparently the water doesn't work. So their soil probably doesn't work either. So they better take back some Hebrew Israelite earth to set up this new altar.
Donna, because in those days, every country had its gods, and the God of Israel operated off of that soil. Take some of the soil through which the God of Israel operates, and that God will be with you back in Aram. I love it because I'm a capitalist and I want Israel to thrive. The business that goes on selling holy water from the River Jordan to non-Jewish tourists. I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I'm totally in favor. It's good for business. But the attitude is the same. If it comes from there, the God of Israel has blessed it. This is one of the very few times in the whole Bible that you see living out the expression of the connection between the God of a people and the soil of the land. And if you want to operate with that God, take a few mule loads of dirt back home with you. Those very good. That's part of the Israeli tourist industry. I'm going to do one more huge topic on healing and God and disease. If you're walking in an Orthodox neighborhood today, and there's a guy here and a guy here, and you happen to be a woman, and you try to walk between them, what will happen?
Screaming.
They will scream. They will scream. They will move back together and they will cut you off. If you're an ultra-Orthodox Jew on an aerial plane and the seats are assigned, and this gentleman with a long coat, beard, hat, the whole thing, is sitting in the middle seat, and you, being a woman, sit down in your assigned seat. He would rather delay the takeoff of the plane than sit next to you for 12 hours.
Right.
It happened to me.
Who said that?
Helen.
Helen, oh, you just appeared, Helen. I couldn't see you, and now I see you. What happened, Helen?
It happened to me on my way back from Israel on the plane. There was an Orthodox Jew, and he was supposed to sit next to me. And when he saw me, he jumped up, ran to the stewardess and said, I'm getting off the plane. I can't sit next to her. And a young man said, I'll take your seat and you take mine.
Okay, we only have 2 minutes left, and I will open a big topic because it belongs in this Sedra. In this Sedra, or the combined Sedras, the power of blood is connected with the frightening nature of women who are repositories of blood. Doris.
Oh, no, I was going to say, Bob and I were on a flight to on El Al, and we had a similar experience where an Orthodox person we were sitting on the two end seats and he asked us to move and we said no. We didn't want to split up because we had a long flight. And he said, please, can we have your seats? And he just kept on trying to find somebody that would give up their seat for him. Because he didn't want to sit next to a woman. Yeah.
I want to say that one of the elements, and thank you, Doris, one of the elements in our Sedra is the association of women with blood and blood with life. At the very beginning, and again, this is just way too complicated for 1 hour, the very beginning, it indicates that the purification rites for a woman who gives birth to a daughter is twice as long as the purification rites for a woman who gives birth to a son.
Mhm.
And when scholars attempted to take this apart, all that they were able to come down to is the mother with her blood has just given birth to another person who will be a blood threat in the community. So that the purification after having given birth to a daughter is more extensive than having given birth to a son.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if a person is shot and dies from that shot within the day, the blood that's on that person's clothing must be buried with the corpse.
Hmm.
If the person survived, I'm talking Orthodox halacha, if the person survives and you get 2 or 3 days in the hospital and this and that, it's no longer an obligation. But if someone dies relatively immediately, that blood is a living force which must not be discarded. Fascinating in all of its ways. I'm going to end with this, that male discharges, nocturnal emission, male discharges are similarly upsetting and requires a mikvah trip to become acceptable back at home. All the bedding, the clothing must be carefully washed.
I hope they change the water first.
I'm not going to talk about that. The
I'm
body
waiting till I get married.
and the mechanisms of emissions and outflow of liquid or of diseased matter are a primary concern in terms of the halacha. To be sacred and to be in a state of holiness, one must go to mikveh and restore one's state of holiness.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Before you
so
get
much.
married.
Oh. Last point. I almost forgot. I promised you at the beginning, Kyle reciting Shema. I
Right.
I almost forgot.
Right.
I was preparing for our class, which I tend to do. And I came across a Chabad rabbi doing a lecture on the Kabbalah view of what animals we can eat and what we can't. This deserves broader, but we have no time. Little sparks of divinity are in every form of life. Certain animals are higher up the scale of good beast. Certain are not. If you prepare your steak or, Maya, your vegetables, whatever, if you prepare your steak properly and eat it properly, you are ingesting the sparks from the cow. And therefore, the cow's sparks become part of you. And when you say the Shema, you can fill in the rest.
Yes. You're amazing. You're going to miss you so much.
Okay. So in case you're looking at cows out in the field, see if they're going like this. Okay? Because
You're the best in the West, Rabbi.
You could be the second book from the right. That I love
We
this
love
stuff.
you.
I do love this stuff, and I love studying it with you. And we're going to do Kaddish now.
Okay.
Mentioning those who have passed away during the past month: Jacqueline Basharat Anvar, Judith Gabriela Ben-Ministy, Diane Edelstein, Evelyn Eigler, Norman Epstein, Donna Golden, Ron Gordon, Brian Kravitz, Judith Miller, Max Shaftal, Hillel Silverman, Dina Taslet, Dean Weiss, David Wolf. Yortsites that have occurred during the past week: Clara Adler, Siegfried Adler, Uri Adler, Alberta Allen, Helen Alvarez, Samuel Baker, Martin Barbakoff, Lillian Barbakoff, Ronald Barbanel, Abram Barkan, Leslie Bell, Zach Bell, Reva Burke, Craig Burkus, Lynn Maxine Bernstein, Rochelle Bernstein, Lena Birnbaum, Harvey Balmont, Jean Bosley, Gloria Jean Brody, Janet Burns, Anne Cezanne, Benjamin Checkanow, Solomon Cohn, Gordon Dishler, Sylvia Dubik, Jane Myers Eisen, Diana Francis Eisner, Amy Engman, Ermin Finkelthal, Ann Finkel, Beatrice Fleischer, Harold Freilich, Ida Frankel, Arlene Fred Gant, Norma Freeman, Ben Freilich, Evelyn Furman, Rose Gaines, Eugene Galen, Janice Gary, Rachel Gertz, Sydney Gertz, Diane Ferguson Glazer, Corinne Goldsmith, Florence Goldstein, Florence Goldman, Paul Grossman, Catherine Handel, Rose Handelsman, Milton Hollander, Max Carl, Louis Kind, Louis Klein, Emma Knopp, Zacharias Knopp, Larry Critt, Eleanor Kuttner, Henry Lauterbach, Helen Levy, Clara Lotz, Beatrice Lowe, Rose Mann, Sidney Madoff, Rose Madoff, Shirley Minter, Julius Michel, Richard Mosk, Renee Motley, Lillian Naiman, Helen Orland, Francine Flug, Ben Pivo, Shirley Weissman Poole, Marshall Redmond, Celia Rochester, Terry Rogers, Richard Rothstein, Martin Ruderman, Mildred Sachs, Rita Sobolski, David Siegel, Don Senek, Benjamin Max Chappelle, Ruth Siegel, Yusuf Nasser Soleimani, Herman Solomon, Carly Stein, James Coper Stern, Jacob Strassman, Myrtle Sugarman, Jean Tabak Bank, Sandy Ullman, Theodore Urban, Pauline Wax, Irving Wax, Arnold Walder, Terry Walder, Alma Walker, Lewis Wallace, Stephanie Whites, David Yowitz, Hannah Zoller, Edward Zimmer, Miriam Farkas Zink. If there are other names to be mentioned at this time, please speak those names aloud or in your hearts. We mention as well all of those, Yom HaZikaron is coming up this Tuesday, all who died in defense of the state of Israel, all who died in defense of the United States of America, all those who died through senseless acts of terror, all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them. All of them are in our thoughts as we join together and say Kaddish. Yitgadal, Yitkadash, Rabbah, Bialma, Divra, Pirute, Yamlich Malchute, V'chayechon of Yomechon, V'chayedechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala, V'izman Harid, V'ibru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba B'Kurah, V'yolam Amen. Nitbarach, Yishtabach, Ba'ar, V'yitramam, Naseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shemei, Richu. Le'ela min kol birch tav shiratam. Damiran v'alma v'imru amen.
Amen.
Hey,
Eshmei.
in Shemaya.
V'chayil.
Aleinu yal kol Yisrael.
Yisrael.
Amen. Oseh shalom.
Aleinu. Ula Shei.
Ula says shalom. Aleinu yal kol Yisrael.
Israel. Bibru. Amen.
May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace in our hearts, make peace in our homes, make peace in the household of Israel, make peace among all the families and nations of earth. And let us all say,
Amen.
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 Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. I love praying with you. Gonna miss you. I'll be to. I'll
Love
zoom
you
in.
all. Be well. Have a great week.
Have a great week. Be
Remember
safe.
on Tuesday and on Wednesday. Happy birthday. Hi, Doug. I hadn't seen you. Hi. Hi.
Thank you. Bye, Rita. Bye, Stanley. I'll see you. I'll be in
Happy
I'll zoom
birthday,
in.
everybody.
Mwah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.